Welcome to a muzzled chat. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Tuesday. So I got a really there we go. Right out the gate, I'm getting phone calls.
Boom.
Little interruption. We're good.
Talking
We're good.
about
We're gonna roll with it, Dan. So Dan happened to be at the Capitol on January 6th of 2020. And man, does he have a story to tell? And I'm really excited to dive into it. Every time I've had the opportunity in person to talk to Dan or over the phone, he just seems very insightful, knowledgeable, patriotic, and I'm just really excited to get to know you a bit more, Dan. So without further ado, how you doing today, brother?
Good, James. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure for me.
Cool. Now, we met at American Fest, Amfest, right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Where are you now? Where are you located?
So I moved from Los Angeles to Austin, Texas, like a little over 2 years ago. So
Okay.
it took me like I drove up from Austin to Phoenix, and it took me like 10 hours just to get out of Texas. Just to let you know how big Texas is. Texas is
Wow.
huge. Yeah,
Well, that's pretty cool. Now,
yeah.
man, yeah, that Amfest, like that that was a pretty cool gathering. I quite enjoyed it. It just breathed like a lot of just hope for this country and for people actually seeking understanding and I just I don't know what tell me a bit about your experience there. Did you how
No, it
did
was
it how
absolutely
did
amazing. Yeah, I
yeah
mean, like being like an older guy, like I'm 42 now, so like when you stop by American Patriot released a booth, right? So I got a chance to speak to like young college age kids, right? Like guys and gals that are going into college or either late high school or already in college. And I told them this, I was like, dude, I wish I were you, right? What do I mean by that? It's just like I wish I had some sense of like um politics at that age. Like I wasn't very political. I was
right
just gonna say this the other day on the phone. It's like I've never been very political. I didn't even know who Joe Biden was until 2018,
wow
because I thought politics weren't in like that's not for me. You know what I mean? That's kind of their
wow
deal, not mine.
well it's crazy kind of with yeah I can understand where you're coming from there where it just didn't seem that important and we just kind of were ignorant and blindly and trusting that oh we live in the greatest country and that our constitutional rights would never be infringed upon, but
Right,
boy as you live and you experience life and you actually use your ears and you see what's happening around you, it starts sounding the alarm internally to where it's like, man, I can't afford to be ignorant any longer. And it's
right,
crucial in this information age that we source not just source information, but we do our due diligence on all fronts because I feel you there. Like politics has always been just painful, ugly, boring, and it's always felt greater like what difference are we going to make kind of thing,
right.
but we can't afford to have that type of mentality any longer and we need to unite. We all must find our voice and do our part. Now,
Yeah.
as we were just kind of chatting before kicking things off here today, you mentioned a little breaking news here about Ray Epps,
Yeah,
and
right.
I mean a lot of people that really aren't in the know because that's a thing I find so valuable about having just a real person you on that experienced it live just to hear your experience like what you dealt with because the war machine as I call it
Yeah,
mainstream media has propagandized that day.
yeah, for sure.
They've they've pushed one narrative at nauseum. And there's been a lot of nefarious things going on where they're painting this picture. And as more and more of the recordings, what, over 40,000 hours or something that they've
Well, that's kind
withheld.
of an arbitrary number, yeah. But I mean, that's kind of even been an arbitrary number because, like, when it first happened, it was 14,000 hours. Then it's like
Wow.
24,000. Now it's up to 44,000 hours, and they're using every piece of video evidence from outside the Capitol, like in
Right.
videos, like in broom closets, whatever they can to like kind of bolster that number. But if you get
Yeah.
down to like what was important,
Yes.
that time frame between like what was it like noon and 5 that day with the meat
Right.
and potatoes of it, you're really looking about probably 14,000 hours.
Wow. And it's been obviously been very selective with that
Yeah,
war machine as to what they're putting out there to push this narrative of an insurrection. And I want to interject just for a second, like all of that at this point for folks that haven't done their due diligence and looked at the other things other than what the news has been pushing, because it's crazy. Like the 10-second post they do, if you watch the additional 10 more seconds, it's completely uh going against the narrative they're pushing, because you see uh the level of instigation on the crowd from the police standpoint, or there's all sorts of nefarious things. But I would like people to, since it's being pushed so heavily there, if in fact you looked at what was happening at our border under Joe Biden in this puppet establishment and really scratch your head, that to me, by the very definition of insurrection, is more so factually fulfilling a real insurrection than what they're trying to propagandize regarding Jan 6. You know,
exactly. And that's a very interesting point because like the US statute code for insurrection is 182232, right? So it means it's very specific. It says either insurrection or rebellion, right?
mm,
So not one of the 1,200 defendants nor Trump have been charged with nor convicted of that 182232, which is the insurrection or rebellion. And
right,
like it's just like that's like accusing me of being a rapist or a murderer if you're accusing me of jaywalking. And what do I mean by that? It's like, well,
wow,
always until proven guilty, right? So they're literally what I'm going to prison for is parading. So that's like a jaywalking ticket. It's a glorified jaywalking ticket, and they're trying to put me in a federal prison for jaywalking, essentially.
that's insanity. And they
Yeah,
keep trying to prop up democracy,
yeah,
democracy, and it's just like, even by their definitions of democracy, it's dead. It's dead because you are guilty, prove your innocence, right?
right.
And it's insanity,
And that's what Joseph Stalin said. He said, "Bring me in, man, and I'll find the crime." Right.
right?
And Joe Biden was even he quoted Stalin. I don't know if you knew this or not, because I don't think Joe Biden's a very smart individual. But he said, "It's
No,
not who counts the it's not who votes, but who counts the votes." Right. So
right,
when they say our democracy, when when they say their democracy, they're talking about their democracy. You are not including their democracy. It's a proletariat their democracy, and they're not the the serfs, like we talked about the other day, like the Russian serfs, like we're not included in their democracy. What they're doing is they're setting up a totalitarian state,
yes,
so that way we
yep,
have the illusion of democracy. But you can see that that's not true, even from the verdicts here in Colorado and Maine of this year,
right.
or last year, late
Ugh.
last year, this year.
It's so crazy how effective with the talking heads, and I don't even get me started, but how organized and how effective it's been, to where people have just kind of drank it up and lost their own discernment, and um yeah, just really haven't connected the dots and looked into more sources of the information. I had another point there, but bear with me. I'm still coming out of the lull of this freaking Lyme, and it was really fun as we talked the other day as to all these different angles, and as to like all of our battles being similar,
Yeah,
yet different circumstances and situations. So regarding Ray Epps, what, like, from the information I've looked into, undoubtedly fed, you
yeah,
know, and yeah, so tell us what you just found out there,
yeah.
and it would be cool to get some of those sources.
Yeah, so just breaking with the Associated Press and different other news organizations, Ray Epps has only been sentenced to 12 months probation and a $500 restitution fine. So, considering
Man.
that he said on January 5th, Big Salmon, who's I guess is a podcaster, he caught him the day before, literally saying like, "We need to go into the Capitol." Ray Epps is saying this the day before, the night before, right? And then he's directing people into the Capitol. That day on the west side of the building, he's literally like touching the banner that's being forced over to the police, right? So kind of to give context to that, like Joe Biggs, right? He leaned on the fence and he got a terrorist enhancement charge, bro. Like they literally
Wow.
charged him with a terrorist enhancement charge because he leaned on a fence, right?
Wow.
So to kind of give some context of like what a joke this is, right? So
Right.
I walked through an open door, an unlocked door. I was inside for 28 minutes, right? All I did was take a selfie, and that's how I got caught, right? So I'm literally going to prison for 45 days. I have 3 years of probation. I do not have any criminal history, right? Like I'm a good dude. They're
Wow.
literally coming down on me because I'm not a fag.
Wow. There's so many stories, Dan, that I would love to connect to this very topic. It's hard for me to retain with all the information and all the different topics. But I remember, Stu Peters would even have some incarcerated without due process that have
Yeah.
been there in the gulag since 20, well, it's almost been 3 years for some of these individuals, and I believe some of them didn't even step foot in the Capitol yet.
But go ahead.
So in comparison to Ray Epps, it's just like, what? This doesn't even make sense.
But think about how they got us, like contextually, right? What you said right there, like we didn't even step foot into the Capitol. They can
Right.
burn down cities, they can like
Right.
loot auto zones, do whatever they want, but they have us in such a spot where we're
Right.
saying, oh well, they didn't even step into the building. Like, wait a minute. Like, think about the if you compare and
I kind of
contrast
used
this,
one
like
of their talking points, right? But
exactly.
you're right. You're bringing up a very good point, because I mean, it is owned by we the people. It's essentially our house, you
Yeah.
know. Uh
It's a mild defense, though, too. You know what I mean? They can burn down the auto zones in Minneapolis. They can cause what
right.
$2 billion worth of damage in the summer of
Billions.
2020.
Right.
And I walk through a door, and suddenly I'm a domestic terrorist, or any of the
Right.
other rules are like domestic terrorists. And this is something I shared with you yesterday. I sent
Right.
you the Antifa.com, right? Where if you go to Antifa.com, it automatically redirects to whitehouse.gov, right? And we all
Whitehouse.gov.
know this in the patriotic community, right?
Right.
But yet none of us talk about it. We all know this, right? It was changed. If you look on the Who is, it was changed on 1/21/21, the day that Biden was installed. Yet
Mm.
no, like we don't have like the freedom of the press anymore. Because if I'm sitting there in front of like whatever the press secretary's name is, like Karen Jean Pierre or whatever her name is, right? And I were to ask her about like, why does Antifa.com redirect to whitehouse.gov? You know, like why has nobody in the press corps over 3 years, and why has nobody said that? We all
Right.
know it, but yet no one says it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Wow.
They're counting
Yeah.
on us. Like if we talked about this yesterday with like Saul Alinsky and the 12 rules for radicals, right? Where like they're holding us to our own standards, right? You and I have standards. You and I are moral human beings. We're not perfect. We're not pretending to be perfect,
Right.
right? But like they're holding us to our standards. They have no standards, and that's exactly why they do it. So like,
Yep.
why has nobody in 3 years said, Joe Biden, why does Antifa.com go redirect to whitehouse.com? That is not an accident. They are rubbing our noses in
Right. Well, that's what tyrannical rulers and hierarchies essentially can get away with, unless we the people in fact stand up and not allow it, right? It's no secret that there's been a full infiltration that's happened, and yeah, we would be derelict in our duties if we didn't abolish and kind of rebuild things brick by brick to ensure things operate as they were designed.
it.
Wow.
But
So
that was
you
one of
give,
the great things. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
oh
go ahead.
no, go for it. One of the
No, I
great
was just
things.
saying that was one of the most encouraging things I got out of AmFest. was that like there's still people
Right.
that care about America, like you and me, and like all those other people that were there, right? I went to
Right.
Washington D.C. on January 6th, 2021, because I thought I was the only person that still cared about America. You know what I mean? Most of my friends were like, "Dude, Trump lost." We all know that's not true.
I said
But they're like,
2020,
"Dude,
didn't I?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah." So it was
2021.
20,
Sorry about
2021. Yeah.
that.
No,
Yep.
no, we're
I'm
good.
human.
Um, we all are, right? But the thing of it is, dude, is like I thought I was the only one that still cared about America, but when I got there, like there was like a million other people that still cared about America. And this is the one thing that the left will never understand. It's not about Trump. We don't idolize Trump, right? It's about you, me,
Right.
her, whoever, like
Right.
standing up together. We are the sovereign, right? We have to
Right.
rule ourselves. You don't get to tell us whether we had a gas stoves or not. We tell you how to vote. If you don't vote the way we like, then we primary you and we get you out. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. I
We have
like
to take
that.
back that mentality.
Yes. Yeah, I even try to refrain now from left, right, kind of talk red, blue,
Mm,
Democrat, Republican, because so much of that has been weaponized and polarized to an extent we can no longer do this and have a
mm,
conversation. And I
right.
believe that all to be intentional and by design. And it's infiltrated all around regardless. So it's kind of, yeah, to your point, just using our own brains to really ask questions and do the deep dives. You can't just take one source and otherwise there's gonna be a level of manipulation that is effective to your own think. Yeah.
But that's a
Um,
great point. Like it's not it's well when I say like left right, right? So you bring up a great point. And thanks for clarifying. It's the uniparty. It's the establishment. I was talking to a
yes.
woman, Lisa, the other day from the I don't want to say where she was from, but she was from another media outlet, right? And she said, "Stop calling them elites, right? These are not elite people. These are
Mm,
very demonic, very evil people that think they can lord over us. Like it's
right.
time that you, I, her, everyone take our power back. We are the sovereign, and we cannot let them forget that."
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I've resorted to in the most simplistic terms where guys, you look back in history, like there's always been kind of just these hierarchies throughout history. And just because the birth of America became the greatest threat to these rulers,
Yeah.
essentially, historically speaking. So it's been just kind of chipping away at this country since its conception. And sadly, it's now gotten to a point where we've been infiltrated enough to where they're projecting essentially everything that they themselves are doing and
Yeah.
fulfilling by the very definition on us, like that they're threatening the people and the citizens of this country as terrorists, and it's just insanity. And we're just I don't understand how we're just sitting back and tolerating it. So because they want to keep this two-tiered system where
Yeah.
they stay in the ruler position and we stayed the rule. And it's just time we stand strong and not allow that and ensure it gets back to by the people, for the people, of the
With people
people.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying is like, but it's great that we have this ability. Like, think about the instant communications, and we were talking about this yesterday, right? You and I live in different states, right? We met up at AmFest, but think about the ability that we have to sit here and communicate not only with each other, but with the audience that you have, right? So
Right.
by this ability to like connect with the people, right? I've met people from Baltimore, I've met people from Montana, I met people from New York, all these
Right.
different places, Arizona, right? But here's the thing of it is like we have to like united we stand, divided we fall. Bro,
Yep.
like I don't care if you have a difference of opinion. God bless you, right? But I will
Right.
respect your rights. My civil liberties end where your rights begin. You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
something that the Bill of Rights was written for the government. It's not written for we, the people, right? That's where
Hmm.
your powers end and my liberties begin. So, like, we need to check them on that, and we cannot concede at any point. At any
Right.
point. and we talk about due process a lot, right? So due process
Yep.
is so important in the Fifth Amendment, right? That's where it's originally mentioned. That's for the federal government. And then for the 14th Amendment, which was after the Civil War, and that where we go down to the states, right? It's the only thing that's mentioned twice. Freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, redress, grievances, assemble. That's not mentioned twice. Only due process. Why is that? Because we believe in justice, right? Like our entire federal or our entire legal system is based on justice. Like, let's find the facts, let's get to the truth, right? And that's why they're so afraid of us, because you and I both seek the truth, and we know that
Right.
they're lying. And if you think about like just from a logical perspective, right? If they call us truthers, what does that make them? Liars.
Right. Wow. Now, have there been many platforms you've been able to share your story up to this point, or a lot of places are pretty much giving you the middle finger?
Yeah, it's funny because like I found like even in like the J6, well, like I've been fighting this quietly for like over 2 years, kind of behind the scenes legally. I yet to really say anything publicly, not because I'm afraid, but because like I didn't think that my story all had that much importance, right? So the only reason why I started speaking out is, and I told you this the other day, is that like I needed a ride to prison. So I reached out to a group called American Patriot Relief that's based out of Texas, right? So they
Right.
focus specifically on January 6th defendants and like how to help January 6th defendants because we've been shafted, right? But since I started speaking out really in August of last year, like I found that there's a lot of gatekeepers. There's not a lot of free thinking people like yourself that are even willing to have me on to say anything because like my January 6th story, like the day of the events is super milk toast. The only thing that's important about my story is the legal aspect because I caught him. I caught my former private defense attorney working with the DOJ, the prosecutor, the judge to deny me exculpatory evidence. There is no dispute as to
Wow.
what happened.
Man, that's dangerous. Yeah. The the system, our legal system, unfortunately, is part of that, infiltrated and not operating as designed. And it would be nice to get back to liberty and justice for all. 100%.
Oh, for sure. But this is what's important. Like you having me on your platform, and thank you for having me on, James. Like I appreciate it because, like I said, like my story as a whole isn't all that interesting. It's only the legal aspect because, like I said, maybe my case, the fact that I caught them, I'm using their own evidence against them, right? I'm using their
Right.
own CCTV video evidence from multiple angles. Some person at some point leaked that video to the internet, which I found by the grace of God, right? But I'm using
Right.
their own evidence, their own words, and their own paper trail against them, and they're still telling me to go to hell. No.
Wow. Well, let's definitely dive into the legal aspect and what you've dealt with and the lack of due process. But before that let's, man, I'd like to know a bit just about that day, kind of your experience, what it looked like, what it felt like,
Yeah.
what even took, like what motivated you to go there. I imagine it had to do with all the nefarious, like, my gosh, it became so telling so quickly, all
Mhm.
the fraudulent things that took place in our 2020 election.
Right.
So you just wanted to, and you had every right to go peacefully protest and let your voice be heard and try to get, what do they say, your grievances addressed, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's funny, even from that standpoint. Like I said, my January 6th story as a whole is very milquetoast, right? So my decision to go to Washington D.C. in 2021 was made on 1/2017, right? I was sitting with my buddy's girlfriend in Long Beach, California. She looked at me. We're watching Trump's inauguration. She said, "Dude, you love Trump. Why aren't you in D.C. right now?" So at that
Mm.
point in my mind, 4 years before any of this had happened, it was like, I do love Trump. I do love America. So at that point in my mind, before Russia, before impeachment hoax one, impeachment hoax two, any of that, right? I knew that I
Right.
was going to DC in 2021. So, you know, the irregularities or, you know, the corruption be damned. Like I knew 4 years ahead of time I was going because not only do I support President Trump, but I support America.
Right. And yeah, kind of more so, yeah, in a way, what he was exposing and standing against. Like, it's easy to hate especially when a whole all the media outlets and social media platforms, I mean, it's easy to hate a freaking billionaire. I mean,
Right.
the natural man is going to have jealousy. The majority of folk won't even admit that within themselves, right?
Right.
And there's a level of arrogance and like certain characteristics, obviously, but is that to me that ended up being one of the admirable traits because he never changed, and to me that just
Right.
shows, oh, he is who he is. He, he's not purchasable, and so there was a lot of like indicators there. But all that aside, essentially what he was exposing and doing, like people aren't even, they just got those talking points and love to hate him so much they never
Right.
actually looked into how blessed we were and how thriving we became for
Mhm.
that bleep in time. I mean,
Right.
I see it as he was so effectively like turning things around. They had to unleash a pandemic,
Right.
distract us all with, oh shoot, like this is gonna, we're losing control here, right?
Mhm.
From these rulers' standpoint. Um, all right, so you get excited, you get out there, um,
Mhm.
want to support this movement, just patriotic.
Yeah.
What did it feel like? I mean,
Oh, it was
like
amazing, brother. Like that's what I'm saying. Is like,
it
dude, like
probably was like American Fest, right?
yeah, right.
It kind of
Like,
had that feeling.
yeah, like, dude, I'm MAGA to the death of me, dude. Like, what do I mean by that? It's like there are so many people like myself, and not that I'm a hero or anything like that, but that have come before me, right? That love
Right,
America, dude. Like I love America. Why? Because it's given me, you, and everybody else that's here the ability for freedom. We have
right,
no idea what tyrannical governments actually look like, right? So like when I say MAGA to the death of me, dude, like I want our country to be great because we are that shining beacon on the hill that that Reagan talked about in the '80s. You know what I mean? We're the
right.
last bastion of freedom in the entire world. We don't want to be like
Hmm.
Russia. We don't want to be like China. Nothing against those people that are there, but they live under totalitarian regimes. Like,
Right.
and right now, I would argue for the past 30 plus years, we've been kind of living under that totalitarian regime as well. But like,
Right.
dude, it's so good to be free, brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, some people just don't grasp it enough that realize it's worth dying for,
Right.
100%.
And that's what, like literally, I sent an email. So let's talk about Ray X real quick, right? So I
Okay.
that news broke like an hour ago, right? That he's only getting 12 months in probation, right? So as you know, I sent you those videos, right? So the Capitol Police induced my entry along with a lot of other people's entry into the Capitol on that day, right? There is no disputing that evidence, right? Even the prosecution acknowledges that they unlocked the doors and that they induced the crowd's entry, right?
I'm gonna cue that up. You keep chatting because it'd actually
Okay.
be cool. I mean, it's not gonna be the easiest for folks to see.
Mhm.
However, it may influence some folks to check out the links and actually
Yeah.
watch it clearly for themselves. But I'm at that 9:30 mark right
Yeah, so
here.
let's talk about that. Yeah, so I believe the guy's name. I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he was like a plant. I don't know if he was a Fed. I don't know what he was, but he was already had access to the building, right? If the federal government did not want us in, if Yogananda Pittman, who was the capital of the U.S. police that day, did not want people trespassing on that ground, no one would have gotten the building, bro. You think anyone's
Right.
breaking into the Pentagon or the White House or wherever?
Well,
No.
we saw, I mean, I think the most popular footage that the majority of people or the most people have seen is probably the QAnon shaman that
Yeah.
was, what all his charges got dropped due to the release where he just had basically a private escort. They were police escorting and allowing, like, it 100% wasn't what they made it up to be. There were a lot of provocateurs, and then I've even heard one gentleman or an official state there was over 200 identified agents within the crowd wearing. And then Charlie said the other day, I don't know if he misspoke, over 2,000 within the crowd dressed up as
Mhm.
Trump supporters, instigating. breaking things. Like they've been identified and like it's been proven. But then
Right.
you just use your own common sense and you see how they push the grandma down the stairs and how they're throwing those like cluster bombs and smoke bombs within the crowd when they're just standing there
Right.
having a good
So
time.
I think that was Clay Higgins. I think that was him on Tucker Carlson, where he talked about the 200 like provocateurs that they know about, right? So I
Right.
haven't heard Charlie speak of the 2000, but that wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, like a lot of the people that were already inside the building and a lot of the people that were destroying things and like,
Okay.
trying to get violent with cops, like they were obviously agent provocateurs.
Well, it's real interesting as I played this segment. So this is the 45-minute one.
Yep.
At 9 minutes and 30 seconds in.
Yep.
And if I click it, I know it's not going to be the clearest for you listeners, but this gentleman comes in, tries opening the doors. There's a lot of um just
Those are the
people.
Columbus stores. So those are on the east side, right? So one of the arguments that occurred from the government and from the prosecution is that they were emergency doors. Like, dude,
Right.
if you look at the time that lapsed from when he first hit the door to when it actually opened, like
Yeah.
those are not emergency doors. Those are magnetically sealed. No one is
Right.
getting into that building unless they literally wanted it to happen.
And it's interesting. He went up, it didn't open, steps back. Now he actually starts looking at this like camera and he's pointing at the door saying something
He's
and
gaining agreement from the Capitol Police.
boom, like it's open. Like he didn't kick that door open. You couldn't kick that door open.
You couldn't, yeah, it would take a bazooka or something like that to open that door. Those are
Right.
magnetically sealed. Those are like, I don't know, some like ungodly amount of weight. So if you forward to why is that important right there? If you see there's a sergeant in arms that runs up at that point,
Yes.
he's the gentleman in the
Yes.
jacket, right? But he has some kind of agreement with the people that were already inside. They have a conversation and he retreats back into the building. What the hell did he
Right.
say?
Yeah. So he like ran up, and then the guy that actually opened it had a conversation. And then this is him just walking back off. Like you guys watch this for yourselves, and it's just, for lack of better words, I just get left scratching my head.
Right.
But it just doesn't make much sense. Now, is there anything with this footage you want to walk through at all, or points you
Yeah,
want to
so
make?
yeah, if you go up to 12:15 on the video, right, you'll see my entry
12.
into the Capitol. Yep,
Oh, okay. 12, 15. Here,
12:15. Yeah.
we'll start it right. That's 12:13.
Okay. Yep. So I'm coming in. I'm the guy in the middle of the screen with the gray North Face jacket. There's a man in front of me. There's a cop in front of him, and then a man with a flag. I'm in the center of the screen.
Oh, down here or up
I
here?
should be center screen. Yeah, coming through the doors at 12:15. So,
12:21. Let me go back here.
oh,
Sorry.
no
I
worries.
want to I want to identify you. That'd be cool. All right, 12, 13, 14.
Okay, so that's the guy with the flag. I kind of stumble through the door, and then I go off to the left.
I don't know if
So
I
I'm only
just.
on screen from like 12:15 to 12:16. But why is
Oh
that
wow.
important? So let's talk about why that's
Oh,
important,
right
right?
here.
Yep, I'm the dude that just like kind of walked to the side,
Just
right?
walk.
Didn't touch him.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to start a fight, dude. Like if I wanted to, I would have. You know what I mean?
Well, looking at the pressure, I mean, if you kind of made your way to the front at the point that's open, like you're almost left with no choice.
Exactly. And we'll get into that here in a second. That's known as the defense of necessity, right? So
Right.
anyway, let's talk about like why this is important, right? So that's from the Capitol Camo CCTV point of view, right? That's facing the Capitol doors. That's their video, not mine. Someone leaked that over 2 years, or probably about 2 years ago or so, and I found a version of that online, right? So in the statement of offense, the prosecution says, "Oh, I entered through the Columbus doors at 2:27 p.m." Right, but they never provided that in discovery. Now, why is that?
Oh
Because you
wow.
saw how damning that video is, right? But they have an obligation, an affirmative duty. I'm using legal terms right now, right? An affirmative duty. There is not an option whether they get to disclose this or not, right? Like the Brady versus Maryland, which we can talk about here. in a minute. It says that they're like essentially they have to turn over all exculpatory evidence, right? Which goes towards the innocence of the defendant or whether the sentencing, right?
Hmm.
They have to turn over that, and it has to be both material and favorable to the defendant. It doesn't matter if the prosecutor knows about it. It doesn't matter if they don't. It doesn't matter if they acted in good faith or bad faith. They have to,
Mm.
right? They have to do their due
Right.
diligence because I am innocent until proven guilty, right? So if we
Right.
look at
Hmm.
that video right there, that's the defense known as necessity. As you pointed out, as soon as that door opened, the crowd surged and they had no choice but to go forward.
Right. Wow.
And
Yeah.
the DC bar actually confirmed that I had the defense of necessity, that I entered the door due to necessity.
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, you sent me the link. There's that angle, and then there's also that one with the other angle, and it shows. So
I'm at
yeah, that's
247 the opposite angle. Yeah. But it shows the same thing and it confirms the first video, right? But here's the
mhm,
interesting part, right? So obviously not a lawyer, right? But I have common sense. And what do I mean by that? So like on 2/13/22, I was watching the Super Bowl. I found a version of that video online and I sent that to my attorney. He's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? And I literally said, I have the screenshots of this. I said, if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But I think the whole thing is on. How can that not matter if they induce the crowd's entry, right?
mm,
But my attorney, a private attorney at that, he knew that they had an obligation to, to turn over that evidence. At no point did he ever mention that to me. He never talked about Brady. He never talked about the defense of necessity. He has a duty to me as a fiduciary and as an
wow,
agent of me being the principal, right? He has a duty to protect me. At no point did he ever do that.
wow, man, there's so much shenanigans.
It's
Gosh,
amazing. But
dang,
that's the whole
it's
thing. It's
such
like
an
the whole
uphill
system's
battle,
corrupt, right?
just
But
an
Ray Epps gets
uphill
off with
battle.
12 months, for, saying we're going to go into the Capitol and that he orchestrated it and all these other
Right,
things. And like I said, like Joe Biggs, like all those guys, I don't know them personally. I just know of
right,
their stories because they're more like prominent stories. The dude touched the fence and he got 17 years. What are you talking about?
yeah. I mean, well, it even I can't remember the specific words, but there was correspondence later that day from Ray Epps. What was it to a family member,
He was nephew.
basically bragging that he caused this,
He
that
orchestrated it
he
verbatim. That's
orchestrated
exactly. Yeah.
he orchestrated it, just bragging, like
But that's
wow,
what they're hitting people with the seditious conspiracy charge for, right? So I went to DC that day by myself, right? I didn't meet anybody there. I didn't change phone numbers. I just went by myself. Had you and
right,
I been there and I sent you a text message, they would hit us with seditious conspiracy. That's how loose they're doing this. They're prosecuting people unless you're a federal agent, which I'm assuming Fed or Ray Epps is a federal agent at this point.
right. Yeah, it's the only
But they're
thing that
hitting people with seditious conspiracy. Think about that. That's why Enrique Ontario, who wasn't even there that day, I think he was in Baltimore, is in prison for 22 years, dude.
right.
22 years.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, man, so legally now, like what
Mm.
all has like what all has taken place, like how did they reach out to you, um yeah, what all's taken place, like
Okay.
uh
So yeah, so like I was originally in contact. So that day, how I got caught, right? So I didn't do social media. I just signed up for Twitter, I think, the end of last year, right? I didn't boast about it. Like I took a selfie when I was inside, right? I sent that to my old boss and he forwarded that picture of me to five people. And one of those guys had an axe to grind with me. He didn't get the promotion because of me a few years earlier and he decided to flip me to the FBI. So that's how I got caught, right?
hmm,
And so when I received a call from the FBI, but you have to understand, like everyone knows this is January 6th, right? As soon as I entered the building, I was inside. And when the police gave us the opportunity to leave, I left, having no idea what was going on the west side of the building, right? I had no
yeah,
idea. So as soon as I left, I left. And when I got back to my hotel room, that's when I realized something more nefarious and something larger was at play, right?
right,
So I didn't know that it was going to be a January 6th. I don't know what I thought, to be honest with you. But I
Hmm.
just know that like it wasn't this grand conspiracy, at least on my part, to overthrow or insurrect the government, which is so stupid. So
Right. Right.
it's so stupid. It really is. So in February of 2021, I am contacted by the FBI. They call me and I said, "Hey, I'm smart enough to know like if the FBI calling." I said, "Let me get a lawyer and I'll call you back." Right. So at the time I was living in Los Angeles, I find a lawyer who's not trying to charge me an arm and a leg. He said, "Give me $1,000 and I'll have a conversation with them." Right. So at that time, I give him $1,000. He has a conversation with them. At that time, February 2021, they didn't press any charges because they didn't have probable cause, right? So this is the
Right.
thing of it is like you and I need to know what our rights are. They need to have
Mm.
probable cause before they can just come arrest you. And the fact like they can't just come sweep you up, like the feds can't come and like pick you up for misdemeanors. It has to be like a felony offense charge, right?
Mm.
Everyone needs to get in it and like contact with their local sheriff's department because the sheriff has authority in their own county, right? The feds can't just come in and swoop people up, right? Another thing I've learned throughout this process. So the first time I got swatted, I was swatted twice.
Wow.
I used to live in Los Angeles and I used to live in New York, and I used to go between the two quite often. So I'm
Mm.
at LAX, and it was like February 21st, 2021, and I get swatted at the airport with like 10 guys with M4s, a bomb sniffing dog. I'm like, what the hell is I obviously knew what it was about, but I was like,
Wow.
dude, don't you think this is excessive force? And they literally made me look like a fool. Look like a fool. They had not charged me
Like
with anything at that point,
like a legit terrorist. Oh my
right?
gosh.
So, like a month later, I'm flying out of Denver International Airport. It's an early morning flight, and the TSA people, they're going through all my stuff. I have four guys screaming, like literally this close to my face at 4 o'clock in the morning, that I'm a white supremacist. I'm like, dude, I'm the only
What?
white guy I know. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I get to my
Wow.
gate, which is like a little bit further. It's like 3 terminals away. And there's 10 more agents with automatic weapons. No bomb sniffing dog that time. You must have the day off.
Wow.
But they were there just to intimidate me. They froze my credit. At the time, I was on EDD through California because of the pandemic, right? They shut down New York. They shut down LA. So I'm a comedian. I have a gig in New York. So because De Blasio shut down the city in March of 2020, right? My residency kind of went away. Anyway, long story short, they kicked me off of my pandemic insurance, right? They completely have financially crippled me. They put me on the domestic terrorist list. They put me on a list where I can't send parcels to myself. I thought that was probably the most interesting, right? So
Yeah.
there are times that like when I have to ship something, like if I'm in New York and I need to ship something, like it's usually screenplays or something like I'm trying to push, right? Um, or sell. And like I go to the UPS store, which I use all the time, and they're like, "Yeah, you're on the list." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So they put me on a list where I can't send parcels to myself. I can't ship it to myself. So instead of lugging it with me from wherever to wherever, I would usually just
Wow.
ship it to myself. It made it so much easier. So from January or from February of 2021 to when I was officially charged, which was October 2021, I had to drive. So I was driving back and forth from LA to Denver, LA to Austin, New York, everywhere in between, dude. So it was like they made my life a living hell, and like I've had it easy, you know. They have done everything. They tapped my phone. They've done it was followed by FBI agents, and this is where I sound like kind of Mel Gibson, like conspiracy theory. You know what I mean? But it's real,
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's so important that every one of us, because they're trying to demonize anyone that stands up for this right here on the shirt,
right?
freedom,
Amen, brother.
uh, your rights, your constitutional rights, your God-given rights. They're just
Yeah,
trying to get everyone to conform to their new tyrannical rule.
right.
And, perp walk everyone. That's where it's no secret. There's like grandmas and grandpas that made these lists, even
Yep,
infants. It's
yep,
insanity.
yeah,
Um, so for all the
right,
listeners to realize, like, we need to utilize this opportunity and support men like you and everyone that's facing this tyrannical hierarchy to ensure, like, because just because they're personally seemingly not being impacted in this very moment, like you cannot be ignorant to the fact like this.
It's coming for you.
Yeah, it will inevitably happen to all of us if we don't start standing up now.
And that's one thing
Um,
that Trump released that meme. I think it was in December of 2020, and it says, "In reality, they're not coming. They're not coming for me. They're
right,
coming for me. I'm just in the way." And like that's the thing they'll never understand about Trump. He's a billionaire. Yeah, he's a playboy. He had all this stuff, right? But he identifies with people like you and me, like the common American person, right? Like you
right.
said, like you're a carpenter, like I'm a regular person, my regular person. I'm not flying on jets or doing anything really cool. You know what I mean? And we identify with him because he understands us. And that's the one thing that they'll never get. It's not about Trump, it's about America.
I mean, yeah, you're right. And there's so many crazy things that happen this day. And you can look at everyone like yours individual story, the footage that's been released. I mean, from that day and then the days leading up and with Ray Epps and everything. I mean, then even, do you know much about this whole pipe bomb?
I've heard of
That,
it, but the fact that they cannot find that person 3 years
right.
later.
That's
Does
been on
anyone know like
video on a,
that?
they were clearly on a phone and they geo hacked or in, what do you call it? Geo
They fenced, yeah. They
fenced,
fenced
geo
us.
fenced. Yeah, everyone Jan 6, like, and they can't. So there's, it's just clear there's enough information out there. And man, it just breaks my heart to hear what you've gone through and so many that were supporting everyone's freedoms. Like, it would just be amazing to see everyone rally behind such patriots such as yourself, man. This is
Well,
crazy.
I appreciate that. Like, I don't consider myself a patriot, right? Like, I always talk about Jeremy Brown, right? Jeremy Brown, he's the Green Beret. He's from Florida. He ran for Congress, right? But Jeremy Brown was approached by the FBI in 2020, right? And he had the gall enough to record the FBI agents because he was trying. The FBI agents were trying to get him to go undercover to spy on the American public. So right
Wow.
after January 6th happened in 2021, Jeremy Brown came out. He did this whole like he was speaking, he was out, he had the tape or the recordings, and he was playing that. Well, what happened to Jeremy Brown, dude? You know what? They came and they swatted him. They planted evidence on him. He's now rotting in a jail or prison in Florida. He's a patriot, bro. Like he's the kind of guy. He was a Green Beret.
Wow.
He's somebody that we need to like lift up. You know what I mean? I'm a guy that wants to go get a burrito. My story's very lame. But why is my story possibly important? Is because like I caught him from the legal aspect. The Fifth Amendment is very clear. It says, "I no citizen can be denied life, liberty, or property without due process." And I caught him. I caught them all. There is no dispute as to what happened.
Wow. And it's thanks to some of this footage here.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. It takes you, it takes me, it takes all these people like the lady I spoke to on Sunday or Saturday, right?
Right.
Like, why is freedom of the press so important, right? If we look at like decentralization, even like, from a Bitcoin standpoint, or like where we decentralize things, right?
Right.
Decentralized journalism is so important. Why? Because what you're doing is
Yes.
important. What she's doing is important, right? We cannot trust Fox News. We cannot trust MSN or CNN or whoever, right? Because
Right.
what President Trump was talking about in 2015 about fake news, I
Mm-hmm.
think we're really starting to see the layer of, or the degree in which he was talking about. We go back to like Operation Mockingbird in the 60s and 70s, right? Where they have
Yeah.
the CIA is literally has agents that are reporting the news, but it's all scripted, all of it.
Mm.
And as being a writer, like I'm a screenwriter, like I can understand when you see those videos of like, every on a child's birthday, every hug is important or whatever. I'm sure everyone's seen that video but it's parodied from like CBS Chicago, the Tennessee, Tacoma, Washington, or wherever, right? They're all saying the same thing. And that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
That's why it's important what you're doing, what she's doing, what we're all doing. And this is what I'm saying. It's like it's going to take all of us standing together, shoulder to shoulder, to take
Yep.
back our country.
100%. no individual can shoulder this burden, and no one, I feel, is going to ride in on a white horse. But if we all, I mean, it starts with seeking knowledge and then sourcing and educating yourself. But the reality is, like, we can all take an additional step, like what we're doing here today, and sharing things like this, getting your story out there, just plugging this on people's individual socials, is taking that extra step. And just by doing these extra steps is going to lead to that level of unity and calls to action. So with that
Right.
being said, um what are some of the specific calls to action that you would give these listeners? You brought up, what was it, American Patriot Relief, and they
Yeah, American
started a
Patriotism.
fund
Yep.
for
So
Jan.
they are a 501c4, right? So that means they're a nonprofit based in Texas, but they are politically the 501c4 as opposed to 501c3. A 501c4 is more focused on like political action, right? So
Right.
we are an organization. I'm volunteering for them. I'm their CMO, and I'm doing a lot of their like regulatory compliance as well. But what we do is we focus on January 6th defendants because, dude, the only reason why I reached out to them is because I didn't have a ride to prison. Like my
Wow.
entire family has disowned me, right? Because of this. Well, because of this and
Wow.
probably some other stuff. But it's just like, so I reached out to Terry Anderson, who I had lunch with yesterday. He lives in Dallas. I live in Austin. And he said he would drive down 3 hours from Dallas to Austin to take me to prison, which was 8 hours away. I can't drive
Wow.
myself to prison, dude. You know what I mean? So like
Right.
when he told me that, I was like, wherever you're going, dude, like whatever you're doing, I'm a part of it. So I've been working for them, volunteering, whatever you want to call it, for like 4 or 5 months now. But if you go to AmericanPatriotRelief.org,
Okay.
it's a website by J6ers for J6ers. And as far as a call to action goes, like we have to realize that at some point they will come for us. They'll come for you, they'll come for me, and like if we don't stand together right now, when it's easy, then
Right.
imagine how hard it's going to be to do it when things get tough.
The list doesn't stop with January 6th. The
Right.
list continues to, all the opposition, everyone that voted for Trump, historically speaking, everyone that owns a firearm,
Right.
and just like some of the things you experienced, like the social media banning and shadow banning and suppression of speech there, I mean, which is clear as day, it has just been the beginning too, where now assets such as bank accounts, PayPal's, like that's been happening more so in other countries, but it also has been happening here as well. And you've kind of dealt with that to an
As
extent, it
well.
seems.
Yeah, so like I had a financial institution that I was working, like they've completely bankrupted me throughout this process. I'm not on here begging for money, but I'm telling you, they
Wow.
have completely bankrupted me over the past couple of years, right? I paid for my first attorney,
Yeah.
my public defender for my appeals. They wanted $40,000. I can't afford $40,000. This is a jaywalking ticket. You know what I mean? Like this is
Ew.
ridiculous. But the
Wow.
punishment is the process is the punishment, right? But there's
Yeah.
another January 6th Bennett who I have a relationship with. I've spoken to her a few times, and I don't think she would mind me saying this, but like she's actually going on the offense. Her name's Jenna Ryan, and she's out of Dallas, right? But she's
Okay.
actually going on the offense right now. Why is that? Because like PayPal dropped her. You know what I mean? PayPal, she's a business owner, right? And they literally went after her. They tried to deplatform her, whatever you want to call it. But she's like, dude, they're taking away our rights one step at a time. So like
Right.
today it was us, or yesterday it was us. If you don't stand up today, it's going to be you tomorrow.
Wow. I can't even imagine how much. No, I mean, there's already a lot of turmoil, and like, man, the what'd you call it? The swatting. But
Yeah, that's intense,
yeah,
dude. Like I'm like, yeah, it's insane. Like I don't have a criminal record. I wasn't accused of like murdering anybody or anything like that. But that's something too, is like we need to go on the offense. It was like Joe Biden sitting there saying, oh, these insurrectionists. Not one person, I already said this, but not one person's been charged with US 182232. That's
right.
like me being accused of jaywalking, but calling me a murderer or rapist. We can't do
Right.
that, you
No.
know?
So have you, gosh, how, so financially, you this has got to be devastating as well. I can only imagine the emotional and everything else, but have you kicked off a GoFundMe or any type of financial support for your legal battles and what you're faced with?
I did a Give Send Go because GoFundMe's, obviously
Questionable.
NWO or what, questionable. They'll seize your funds. We saw that with what happened with Trudeau and the truckers up in Canada. What
Right,
was that? End of 2022 or something like that.
right,
Uh, but yeah, I started to Give Send Go so people can go there. But it's not just about me, dude. Like, there's so many other
right,
people. Like, the reason why I was at AmFest that day or those 2 days was because like I was trying to get other people. I was trying to put a face with the Chase Sixer, right? So like
right,
all things being considered, I've had my credit frozen, swatted twice, been put on a domestic terrorist list, can't find work, but I've had it easy, dude, compared to other people that are still in the
right.
gulag right now. Like
Wow.
so many people have lost their house and their entire livelihoods over this. So
That's
if you
where
can
the
go,
American Patriot Relief, like all of those funds are going towards feeding the ones
yep,
rotting in the gulag and supporting their families because a lot of these men were the breadwinners for their family and their children. And so their families suffering and facing bankruptcy and whatnot. So, and then also the legal insane burden.
we don't focus on legal funds, right? Because if you look at my situation specifically, like who this is like I paid for my legal funds out of my pocket personally, right? But that's just a black hole because the lawyers or whoever will just eat your funds. So what American Patriot Relief does is like exactly what you said. Like so many of these people are the breadwinners. So many of their families have gone bankrupt. So many of their families cannot have like food on the table or having trouble like keeping the lights on, right? So that's where APR steps in. We help those families pay the bills. So everything that you donate, like if you were to donate $50, that $50 would go to either someone's commissary or their light bill or whoever, and it's all needs based. So we have a great campaign. It's called $16 a month, right? So it's $16 a month, once a month, every month on the 6th. So it's very easy for people to give. You go to AmericanPatriotRelief.org. You can sign up to do that. $16 a month. It's like 53 cents a day. It's very, very easy for people to give, and it makes a big impact.
Man, that's good information to have. We'll definitely be plugging a lot of this into the show notes. So listeners, be sure to check that out.
Man.
Um, wow. I mean, it's a lot, but just one step at a time. Is there more sources that you're getting your story out there where people could, if they want to look more into your specific or more, is a lot of that information on American Patriot Relief as well?
No,
Or
because like I said, like I'm kind of behind the scenes with them, so they're seeing a lot. I'm doing a lot of the marketing for them. I don't do a lot of social media. I have a Twitter account that I recently signed up for. It's at underscore 5150, spelled out FITFY ONEFITFY 5150. That has my gifts and go on there. But like I said, it's been hard, dude, because like I'm trying to sue my former private attorney for not disclosing Brady information, not getting evidence. Okay, imagine
right.
this, dude. Like you are charged with a crime, right? Your lawyer knows that there's evidence that can exonerate you and doesn't do anything to help you. Like he's
Mm,
in on it. They're all in on it. And that's the thing
mm.
of it is because they don't want if the worm turns, which it will eventually, they don't want to go against the system, dude.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. Any firms or individuals doing that. I mean, they're breaking so many laws
Yeah.
right there. Like they shouldn't even have their license, for to practice law and whatnot at that point.
It's
There's
ridiculous.
gotta we gotta start holding people to the fire and getting accountability. It's really hard in a tyrannical kind of state. And
But that's the thing of it is like with people like yourself that are getting these stories out there and bringing this to the level of consciousness, because for a lot of people like myself, like January 6th is front and center in my mind every day. Why is that? Because I'm facing prison time. But for a lot of people that just saw it on TV and kind of dismissed it as maybe like being a conspiracy theory or this or that or the other, they're moving on. You know why? Because they have bills to pay, they have kids to feed, whatever. So like they don't understand the significance of the events of that day and the fact that it was a false flag set up by the government. So when the
Mhm.
Democrats or when the government says that it was like 9/11 in Pearl Harbor, they had foreknowledge of the events, just like they did
Oh
that
my
day. And
gosh.
when the truth comes out, it's going to be told, and they're going to be able to prove in a court of law that they knew about it.
Right. Wow, this is just it. I mean, we only can show up and do our parts at this point. It's really tough to articulate for individuals because I get how essentially weak we've all become, and like we've kind of been molded into very selfish, self-serving creatures,
All right.
in this time and age. And we focus it on our own woes, but this is bigger than just your situation and these
Yeah.
others be suffering. Like what in fact is taking place will inevitably impact if we don't show up for each other and
Amen.
seek for that accountability. So it's a must.
Wow.
We can't just start focusing on, and the most important thing I feel we could do is get your story out there. So for those that come across this, please share it
Yeah.
and, you know, uh, support us here too. Click the subscribe.
Yeah. Yep.
And my gosh, I mean, what other, I know we already kind of asked the calls to action, but I'm like, I
So
just
yeah,
want
so
to
if I
like
could give you
reiterate,
maybe
how do we secure our freaking future? There's a lot going on here.
so here's what I have to say, right? Is that like it's gonna take people, and I kind of already said this before, it's gonna take people like you, people like me, people like her,
Okay.
him, whoever, right? We all have to do this together because like when they say we the people, like
Right.
we're the sovereigns. We have to remember that. They don't get to tell us whether we have gas stoves or not, bro. Like
Right.
we tell them we want them to vote. And like you said, it's going to be accountability. Like we can
Right.
say, oh, let's get dark money or all this big money out of politics, but you know what's really gonna happen? Is we get engaged at a local level and hold our local representatives feet to the fire. So we got to do the bottom up and then the top down, right? Hopefully, President Trump gets back into office, but we can't count on that. So we need to take action from a local level, get involved, go door knocking, register people to vote, whatever it is. But be an active member in our constitutional republic that uses a representative democracy to elect our public officials. We're not a democracy. A democracy is mob rule.
Right.
A constitutional republic is, a system of government where everybody has inalienable rights. You don't get it. My
Yes.
rights don't go out the window because the DOJ. This is the largest investigation by the DOJ. DOJ wasn't even around until after the Civil War. It doesn't matter. My rights trump my rights supersede whatever the DOJ is. And we have to remember that. We
Right.
need to be informed. And like I said, like I've had this idea, I've spoken to other people about it, about like having like constitution parties. I know it sounds
Mm.
lame, but we live in an age where like guys like me and you will have like fantasy football teams. Like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you know what's more important than fantasy football?
Oh
Our
my
our
gosh.
rights. What if we had like
Yeah.
Zoom parties or whatever? Like, hey, let's do a constitution party and like let's learn about our rights and take our
I
government.
don't understand what happened to go woke, go broke. There was a
Yeah,
lot of people boycotting the NFL, and then now I don't know, for whatever reason, it's like we all dealt with a bit of amnesia, and everyone's tuned in, and ratings are off the charts yet again, and it's just like, what, guys,
yeah, right.
like,
But that's the thing.
like
But it goes back to individual accountability and like you said, like accountability. Let's hold our representatives and people like boycott, whatever you want to call it. Like we are the sovereigns. We need to remember that. We need to like have conversations like this and have conversations with people that we don't agree with. Like
100%.
it's your right to speech is more important than my right to be offended.
And that's the thing. If you really step back and look at, and you're just like, and you want to start dipping your toe, is like when you step back, only one side, and it's kind of just being fueled by evil, is essentially putting all these labels on things, and it's my way or the highway, or you're
Yeah.
this or you're that, or you're, they put all these labels. And if you go against that kind of ideology on these platforms, and it exposes everything from the major platforms to the social medias. And then the other side, like me and you, are part of it. I mean, we're human, right? We're not perfect, and
Yeah.
we've already
Yeah.
admitted to that. But it's like our big ask here isn't, I'm not trying to instill what I my beliefs upon you in any way, shape, or form. The main ask here is, please do your due diligence. Don't
Yeah.
take my word for it. And figure it out for yourself. And I've often even said that evil would never take that stance, never, until
No.
they are, unless, if only they in fact become entirely in control of all the narrative, all the information, like Nazi Germany and the book burnings, and it's been happening in the statues. I mean, they're deleting history, they're demonizing it, and it's just, it's toxic, and it's just so damning.
Well, there's
Um,
important. There's a really like I've heard this on Alex Jones, right? Where it says the propaganda wouldn't be necessary if they were winning. You know what I mean? Like if
right,
Hitler's in power, like he doesn't need propaganda, right? Even like exactly what I said. Like if they had full control, if they had what they really wanted, they wouldn't need the propaganda. But they're
right,
not, and we need to remember that. And we need to have these open communication channels and have conversations with people who don't look like you or people that don't agree with you. That's the best thing we can do, is because at the end of the day, your freedoms, my freedoms, all of our freedoms are on the line. And we have to remember that. We have to support each other, whether we agree with them or not.
right. Well, folks, let's all get excited to do our part. The reality of it is, it just is the way it is. So, like, let's just do our part. Let's be excited. It's not a doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Um, but we can't allow things to deteriorate any further, because the fact of the matter is, it's a lot easier to fight for the freedoms you still have than,
Mhm.
get them back after they've been lost.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
well, Dan, you're a stud. And as we've talked on the phone, like, you're very knowledgeable. You've done a lot of research on things. Like, it is interesting. I know we can relate on a lot of things, like we kind of started off with, not really uh being much into like politics and things like that, but
Right.
it's just kind of like connecting the dots. And once you
Yeah.
kind of see this battle, good versus evil, really taking place, and this fifth generation warfare we didn't ask for right here at our doorsteps, you start connecting these dots, and then you're left with no choice. And that's where I just hope, folks can be excited to do their part and
Well,
look
like we
into
said
things.
yesterday on the phone, like we're in the same war. We're just fighting different battles. So your battle is different than my battle, but we're fighting the same war. Like you said, this is fifth generational warfare. This is unrestricted warfare. Those two
Right.
Chinese generals in 1999 wrote a paper talking about unrestricted warfare,
Wow.
how to take down America. So we need to realize that we're in a war. We're not having tanks roll down the street yet,
Right.
right? But we need to get active, get engaged, and support each other. Because at the end of the day, bro, you and I were both Americans. I support your right to be free, whatever you want to say, and I support you as an American.
Well, Dan, keep your head up, because I sure hope, like, if things go accordingly, enough people show up, then your battle is just a today issue, right? And we could essentially make it all go away tomorrow. Not literally tomorrow, but here
Yeah,
in the near future. And hopefully with that, there's a lot of accountability and restructuring and checks and balances put into place to ensure that, yeah, that there is justice for all.
amen.
Um, bro, I appreciate your time, and it would be awesome to stay in touch with you, have other discussions, and also do updates regarding your legal battle, and in any way, shape, or form, like, we can help support you, get your message out there. I mean,
Yeah, if you
get
guys could just help share my story, because like I said, I didn't start speaking out until August of last year, and the only reason why I did is because I needed a ride to prison. Like I've been fighting this behind the scenes like for over 2 years now. So like I'm winning, right? And it's not because I'm some intellectual giant or because I'm some pillar of morality. I'm telling the truth. The great thing about the truth is a linear weapon in a non-linear environment, right? So what does that mean? If you tell the truth from day one, on day 150, day 100, the 365, you won't have to worry. You know why? If you tell the truth, you have nothing to worry about. John 18:32 says, "Then you shall know the truth, and truth will set you free." Right?
mm, I like that.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. The other side just keeps changing their stories. Oh my gosh.
exactly.
I
So,
don't even want
James,
to go
thank
there.
you so much for having me on, brother. Like I said, like it was great to meet you at Amfest. I appreciate everything that you're doing for me and everything you're doing for the J6 community. And like, stay strong, brother.
Man, I appreciate you. If you want to hang on just for a moment, I'll do a quick sign off and we can chat for a
Okay,
minute. But
sounds good.
folks, thanks so much for supporting us here, hearing Dan out. Check out this AmericanPatriotRelief.org. And we'll plug his Twitter if you want to know more or even get in touch. Let's just show up and do our part. Let's go. God
Yes,
bless you. We'll talk to you soon.
man.